Vatic Ventures Corp. is a potash exploration company focused on the Korat Basin in Thailand, the world's largest undeveloped potash resource. Vatic's management has extensive potash exploration and development experience in Thailand. Vatic will have marketing advantage compared to Western producers. Drill program commences this spring. Vatic trades on the TSX Venture, symbol VCV, and on Frankfurt, symbol V8V2. Visit our website, vaticventures.com.
You're listening to HowStreet.com radio, available online at TalkDigitalNetwork.com. Welcome to HowStreet.com radio, the online source for market opinions. Here is Jim Goddard.
My guest is home ownership consultant Ross Kay from the wealthyhomeowner.ca. Welcome back to the show, Ross.
And thanks for having me back, Jim.
Ross, is it a big blow for Southern Ontario's real estate market with word that GM plans to lay off 10,000 Southern Ontario workers?
Well, I think it's a big blow for those families, Jim. It's a sad day for those folks. They have such a short period of time, probably about a year, to prepare themselves for this. There is no reason, there's no logical reason in my viewpoint that the government hadn't moved plans to support these people in one manner or another. I know that this will cause some families to have to sell the family home and move on. I also know that had they been given the proper advice over the last year, many of them could have cashed out when the market was at its peak. And they probably could have taken what their payout would have been from GM and moved to a cheaper community somewhere in the province and lived the rest of their life quite comfortably. Sadly, situations like this, Jim, everybody wants to play stupid. Everybody wants to play dumb. Government wants to play like this is a surprise. This is not a surprise. When you give companies billions of dollars, as our federal and provincial governments did in the Great Recession to these American car companies, and you do not negotiate contracts with them that specifically are targeted to remove any way that your citizens can be attacked. In this case, 10 years later, jobs leave the country. It's just the incompetence of the government, Jim. And you're seeing it out there in BC. Isn't there a housing development out there? What's it called? Little Mountain. Something
it was a social housing area near Nat Bailey Stadium, and they kick everybody out of the houses, and they've been sitting there vacant during a time for 10 years. Where there's been a huge demand for social housing, and they're doing nothing. It's just sitting there.
And to me, to me, this is no different than the Oshawa deal. This is government being manipulated by someone when they're at a moment of weakness. What you learn negotiating, and this is what Trump knows in the States, and everybody can laugh at him all they want, but this is what he knows. When you have someone in a position of weakness, whether it be it's in a recession and GM is going to go bankrupt, and that could lead to thousands of layoffs in the province. Governments will willingly step up to the plate and give cash away. They will take taxpayers' money from one taxpayer and give it to support another. Now, we fully endorse this. Like this place, this Little Mountain place out in British Columbia. What you had out there's another example. What you had out there was a developer in the Great Recession who saw an opportunity. He saw your local governments struggling during a recession, trying to find a solution to housing. The developer comes in and makes a grand plan and a grand offer, and the government, not realizing what's really going on, agrees to it. Then 10 years later, you find out, well, the guy didn't pay the money. Well, yeah, because you didn't build in the clauses in your contracts to be sure that they were paid or that land went back to the people of British Columbia. They didn't negotiate in 2008 for the type of housing market Vancouver was then, is today, and will be 20 years from now. You have constrained growth in that geographical area, and this land naturally was going to increase in value, and you were probably going to rezone it and allow more intensification. The builder's not stupid. He basically has sat on that property for 10 years as it's increased in value, predicated on him negotiating a great contract back in 2008 because the government was too stupid to understand what was really going on. Your governments don't understand that they're going to be taken advantage of. What's happened in the States, you heard the same plant closings were in the States. What was Trump on television today? He was warning GM right today. You better take jobs from Mexico and put them back in Ohio. Our government in Canada doesn't have that power. Our government in Canada can't say those poor families in Oshawa who have worked very hard for decades, produce great quality vehicles, and arguably some of the best quality vehicles in the world at a reasonable rate in an environment where the workers are fully funded in their healthcare system, which allows the manufacturer of the automobiles to get off the hook with the union. All the great things that happen in this country, that is all taken away because the government didn't foresee it. Our government has no power with GM to pull them back in. They've got to beg for GM to stay here. It's just ludicrous, in my opinion, Jim. We're looking at today. So when I saw this, I remembered a story about an EV pickup truck that was fully developed in 12 months here in the province of Ontario using Government Ontario finance for R&D. There was tax credits, there was grants. Anyways, they did the amazing thing of producing a pickup truck, EV pickup truck, in 12 months that supposedly had a 300-mile range. Yet, here we are, losing jobs in Oshawa, and that truck is not being built in Ontario today. Now, either the fellow was a con artist, and he got the money from the government, and he didn't really produce this vehicle that appeared in all the newspapers, or it's the truth, and somehow, between when it was developed and today, it still isn't being produced. Alberta. We hear about problems in the Alberta economy right now because of the oil sands. We also hear environmental concerns over the tailings ponds. And then we hear on Howe Street another company advertising how they're able to extract lithium from the tailing ponds. Yet the Alberta government is not extracting that lithium with this company, like finding out whether this is the truth or not. And if it's true, let's actively use that to our advantage to create batteries for trucks that we build in Ontario. And recent legislation, I think announced today in British Columbia, is they're going to go to EV vehicles.
Yep.
Okay, so why not build the infrastructure in British Columbia to support Alberta lithium battery production and Ontario truck production? It just doesn't make any sense to me, Jim, when we're sitting here looking at the home ownership wealth destruction that is going to take place in Oshawa because of this move, the arrogance of this big American corporation who took Canadian taxpayer money and now has run away with the jobs, or the billionaire or millionaire who bought that property on Little Mountain, promising to supply social housing, affordable housing, improve the housing stock, and they didn't do anything. It's unethical, it's wrong, and until our government step up and realize any contract you negotiate for the worst case scenario. How can I be attacked? If I sign this contract, what loopholes, what cracks, What little mistakes are in this contract that can allow someone to attack me? When you're selling homes for a couple of decades, Jim, you're doing thousands of these contracts over and over again. Every single time you see a contract, you change an I, you cross a T, you put a period in the end of a sentence. You go over these, fine-tuning these contracts over and over again. You consult lawyers daily. Have them review the contract. What mistake did I make? What loophole did I make? Then you go look at the court cases. Okay, how did someone else's contract get attacked? And then at the end of time, after hundreds or thousands of sales, you're able to produce a contract where your client never has to worry, where your client can walk in to any real estate transaction and not be worried. You can accept contracts from other real estate agents, and you can see the loopholes that they've left in the contract that your clients, if it comes to it months later, could take advantage of. That's the approach that I see when I see Oshawa today, Jim. Long story for a simple question. The home ownership wealth destruction that is going to take place in Oshawa to those families is immense. They should have been given advance warning to make a plan in case this happened. It didn't take a brain surgeon to figure out the odds on this happening were very high, and you should have known about it 2 or 3 years ago. Those families could have made decisions to protect themselves. The innocent first-time buyer who got a job there, who went out and purchased a home, who didn't sell it at the peak of the market, and now is watching as their home is dropping in value, has now been told a year from now they're not going to have a job. And the odds in finding a job that's going to pay them the same is next to impossible. That's the reality of home ownership.
We'll have more with Ross Kay right after this.
I'm Douglas Mason, CEO of Naturally Splendid, symbol NSP on the TSX Venture Exchange. Naturally Splendid is a biotechnology and consumer products company focused on the global cannabis and health markets. Naturally Splendid is expanding distribution in this rapidly growing market with products currently in Canada, the USA, South Korea, Germany, and Australia. To view our comprehensive company presentation and for more information, please visit our website at naturallysplendid.com.
I'm Kelly Jennings, CEO of PowerBand Solutions. PowerBand is a cloud-based provider of auction, inventory, and finance solutions that make buying, selling, and financing vehicles more efficient. PowerBand Solutions trades on the TSX Venture Exchange symbol PBX and on the OTCQB symbol PWWPF and on Frankfurt symbol 1ZV. For more information, please visit us at powerbandsolutions.com.
This is like being on the bridge of a ship. I'm just getting pelted here. And I'm looking at the river and ships, so I'm almost seasick. Welcome back. We're speaking with Ross Kay. Ross, there seems to be some panic in the BC market right now. Realtors are beginning to say it may be short-lived, and it'll just be a little lull in the market. What are you thinking?
What I'm thinking is that these realtors that are talking, giving advice to people every single day, are simply using a constrained data set to make their proclamation. So when we're looking at a housing market, Jim, the sales data at the local real estate board, the sold prices of homes, that constitutes between 30 and 35% of the data set. Okay, that leaves 65 to 70% of the required housing, the required data to measure a housing market elsewhere. You're not accessing it. The reason why back in 2016 we wrote about the money laundering Ponzi scheme, which we talked about on the show here, and we did a small report. And then the reason now why you're seeing journalists in British Columbia winning awards for explaining money laundering going through real estate is because we use the full data set. It would have been foolish for us back in 2016 to suggest criminals were money money laundering in casinos in British Columbia. I mean, we had no idea that money was going through casinos. We did, though, know that there was a hole in the financing in British Columbia that could not support houses being sold for what they were selling for. There's a factual hole in the financing. There wasn't enough money being financed. So we came up with a solution. Okay, well, something's going on. We know that how it happens. We know that it's a Ponzi scheme. We know that it's a way of laundering money. But we're not going to say it's laundering money. We just say it's a currency exchange Ponzi scheme. If you go back and read our report, we specifically talk about criminal intentions. We specifically talk about it. But we didn't come out with some big claims. We just go ahead and let the reporters, we're now over 2 years past, begin to win awards for their research, with basically it's just confirming our research from back in the spring of 2016. Our research was predicated on simply looking at the mortgage lending market in British Columbia. So in British Columbia, you also have to look at the new home housing market. You have to look at the private for sale housing market. You have to look at the rental housing market. You have to look at the permitting that is going on with houses. You have to look at where the builders are marketing their property. You have to then look at the resale housing market. You have to look at equity gains by the homeowners in a given community. You have to see, is there any immigration taking place in that city? When you add all of those things together, a housing market, the picture of a housing market is crystal clear. You are able to forecast with such accuracy that you wonder why no one else can. And that's what we would say about this rumored short-lived lull in the market, or market stabilizing, or soft landing. We would say supply us 1 4-month period in the history of any provincial real estate market where there was a so-called soft landing. We would say supply to us the data over any 4-month period in the last 40 years in any provincial market where a market was stabilized. We would know that we know they couldn't supply it because it doesn't exist. Because they're looking at a little tiny data set of between 30 to 35% of the entire market. If you don't know where the mortgages are going, if you don't know how the mortgage interest rate is going to impact the group of buyers who are buying in a given month, because that changes from month to month, you can't forecast the housing market. And what happens? Innocent home buyers go out there into the marketplace. They acquire real estate blindly. They're buying something they're not even told about. We hear this, we hear the affordability issue all the time. Well, we view affordability in a totally different way, and we measure it in a totally different way. So when we hear that there's a lull in the market, that, we've talked about contraction bumps on the show here in the past. We know you're simply measuring a factor of the market that took place months or years ago, and you're seeing it show up in the real estate stats now. What I'll tell your listeners is this from our viewpoint, Jim. All of the bloggers, all the realtors, all the economists, all the banks, they all use the same limited data set and try to explain the housing market using it. You'll see the exact same house price sales chart. You'll see the exact house price metrics. You'll see the exact same sales. They may separate it into single detached sales, condo sales, and condo listings, single detached listings, and they'll have a whole group of answers that they're guessing at to trying to come up with a conclusion. And the problem that they all have is they're all using that limited data set. And it's not like a lot of the data that we have is not publicly available. It is out there. You just have to go out and collect it. You have to know how to collect it. And then what you collect, you have to know how to interpret. It's how we know what mortgage originations are going to be next month. We know exactly what they're going to be. And if there's even a $2 or $3 million flex in what our forecast is, we know that there's something happening in a market that is not local. We know that it's being changed from outside forces. When you're going out and making the single largest investment of your life, my opinion is you need to be getting your advice from someone who looks at all 100% of the data and not that 30 to 35%.
We'll have more with Ross Kay right after this.
Grand Portage Resources recently completed the 2018 drill program on its 100% controlled Herbert Gold Discovery property located in the prolific Juneau Belt in southeast Alaska. Drill results are expected through late 2018. Past drill results included numerous multi-ounce gold assays on multiple veins. Grand Portage trading symbols are GPG on the TSX Venture, GPTRF on the OTCQB, and GPB on Frankfurt. For more information, please visit our website, grandportage.com.
Don't miss out. Stay informed. Receive the HowStreet.com weekly recap with thought-provoking podcasts, radio, and articles delivered to your inbox. Sign up for the HowStreet.com weekly recap on our homepage at HowStreet.com.
Welcome back. We're speaking with Ross Kay. Ross, how can listeners protect themselves from a correcting housing market?
Oh, great question. Okay, so a correcting housing market. So I'll preface the conversation this weekend. Every day, every single day, our members are supplying me with information that is being collected from the greatest financial minds in this country. I mean, when I see some of the names supplying the financial advice being given, it is the who's who of the financial services sector. Not in Canada, but just in Canada, but across North America. These are the leading minds in the financial services sector. So what I hope your listeners understand is that I am not arrogant enough to suggest I am anywhere capable of even opening my mouth about these financial services or the stock market or the bond market. I believe that you should be looking to professionals to supply you with that kind of advice. It's cheap. It's obviously readily available. And like I say, our members are getting world-leading financial market intelligence every single day. And I'm watching what they're giving, and, I'm just in awe at times at some of the recommendations that they're being supplied. And they're not getting it from us. All we are is the unbiased facilitator of making sure the information that they're being provided is vetted, that it's right. And that's what makes the difference of how you protect yourself in a housing market correction. Prior to the wealthy homeowner being launched, this type of approach was never available. Yet every financial advisor in Canada, every financial planner in Canada for 40 years has begged homeowners to follow it. We track the housing market for your house. So let's say that you're the family in Oshawa that found out that they were losing their job today, Jen. Let's say it's one of those families. Now, we would have been monitoring the market for them, but they would have been answering the questions along the way. What are your job loss opportunities? Well, I think in that specific case, the information that they're being given is you need to be protecting yourself with it. Now, I will honestly tell you, we have no members that are uniform members out of Oshawa. We do have them out of Oakville, but we do not have them in Windsor, but we do not have them out of Oshawa. And those people, we would have told them years ago to speak with a financial advisor and ask this series of questions, and we would have supplied them with the questions. their financial advisor or financial planner would have given them responses. They could have taken action based on those responses to decide whether or not they should sell the family home and maybe purchase another family home or rent another family home or move out of the neighborhood or make other plans, or keep the family home, but instead leverage their home equity, knowing that we're here to protect you. We're not going to be giving you a false opinion of value on your house to try to encourage you to invest with a financial advisor. No, we are going to tell you whether your house price is going to go up and going down. We're also going to tell you in a housing correction that your house price is going to drop. And with each passing month, your opportunity to offset that loss through engaging a financial advisor or financial planner is reduced. Your opportunity to offset that loss continues to get worse the longer you wait. In a housing correction, you need to spread your equity around. Now, I'm not saying you should call up a financial advisor and go get a HELOC and give them the money. No, I'm saying you need to have an opinion on your home ownership wealth situation, your home equity, where it's trending, and then you need to make a rational decision on any investment ideas your financial advisor may give you. If you don't do that, you're at the mercy of the market. And as those families in Oshawa are finding out, not only are they at the mercy of the market, which has now been deflating for over a year and about 4 months. Housing prices have been falling for a year and 4 months in Oshawa. I don't care what any real estate agent tells you. No difference than I don't care what they scoffed when we said housing prices had dropped 26% in the fall of 2016 in Vancouver. And now here it is 2 years later. Oh, magically, yeah, it's 26%. And that's only the beginning, folks. Okay, so Vancouver, don't think you got off the hook. That's only the beginning. And in Oshawa, that family didn't get an opportunity to protect themselves. What you need to do as the housing market corrects is to look at your full home ownership expense, your equity gains, your forecasted equity gains, your employment, and you need to look at your expenses across your entire lifestyle. When we hear comments about affordability, when we go to the government websites and we look at how they define affordability, Jim, in Ontario, this is an example of, this is the government's definition of affordability that is used in all their decision-making processes for all of the people who live in Ontario. They define affordable as this: housing for which the purchase price results in annual accommodation costs which do not exceed 30% of gross annual household income. When I read that, Jim, we started laughing. We started laughing because I can assure your listeners, the thousands of families who I sold houses to over the years, the vast majority, almost all of them, would have had annual accommodation costs that exceeded 30%. Most first-time buyers who purchased homes would have had annual accommodation costs that exceeded 45% of their income. What the governments don't understand, what you don't understand in a housing correction is, that first-time buyer, the number one expense they have in life is their home. The second expense they have are taxes. If you're a trade-up buyer, someone who's into your third or fourth home, the first expense you're going to have are your taxes. The second expense you're going to have will be your annual accommodation costs. It reverses as you get older because your income level goes up. Odds are you stay in the same home as you get raises with your job. It changes. Your aspirations of leveraging your income decrease, contrary to what everyone's talking about in the marketplace. So those people who are wondering, what do I do in a housing correction to protect myself? You need to sit back and look at your whole life. You need to look at your accommodation costs. You need to look at your home equity. You need to look at your home ownership wealth profile. You need to calculate where your numbers are going to be, and you need to sit down and look at the numbers and make a rational decision. I'll tell your listeners this, Jim. The vast majority of homeowners in a housing correction lose money because they leave all their money in the house. In a housing correction, a correcting market, a market where housing prices are not going up by 3% a year. That is a correcting market in Canada. You are better off not paying down your mortgage when interest rates are below 6%. The numbers just are in your favor to give to a financial advisor. Someone that you can trust. Someone who you're simply paying for their advice. It's not us because we don't do it. I'm giving you advice which we don't do. I'm encouraging you to do something that my firm doesn't handle. You need to get out and get a pro, someone who knows what they're talking about, someone who's way smarter than we are. We're experts in one area. Home ownership wealth, period. We know how it works. We know how the housing market works. We know how home ownership works. That knowledge can allow you to make decisions that greatly improve your life. That's how you protect yourself in a correcting housing market.
Ross, thank you so much for chatting with us.
Hey, thanks for having me on, Jim.
My guest has been Ross Kay. He's a home ownership consultant at wealthyhomeowner.ca. You're listening to HouseStreet.com radio. Find us on Twitter at HouseStreet, our YouTube channel, Talk Digital Network. Questions for the show or our guests like Ross can be sent to info@HouseStreet.com. I'm Jim Goddard. Thanks for listening.
Comments made on HouseStreet.com radio are an expression of opinion only and should not be construed in any matter whatsoever as recommendations to buy or sell any financial instrument at any time. Available online at TalkDigitalNetwork.com. HouseStreet.com radio is a production of House Street Media Incorporated.